What are we waiting for?
We scoping the place out, man. We ain't gonna just run up in there. That's how you get shot.
Say that again. You are. Wow. Ooh. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely
Man, you
not.
don't know nothing about no war.
Everybody knows war. Who? Yeah. What it is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Good God, you all.
It ain't you all, it's y'all.
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 Man, you sound like a karate movie. Y'all.
Y'all.
Say it from right here with some soul. Y'all.
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 Let me show your goofy ass how to do this. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Yeah, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Come on.
Giants fans, what is going on? And welcome to another episode of the New York Giants Rush Draft Show. This is our final week in which we are breaking down certain positional groups. And today we have the pleasure of finishing up with one of the top positions in football, cornerbacks. Lots to talk about tonight. Odds the Giants get one of those guys first. It's probably not going to happen. That's not how it's looking to roll out. However, lots of great cornerbacks come throughout the mid-rounds. And, of course, there's always a good chance that the Giants draft one of those dudes. And hopefully one of those guys balls out. Regardless, a lot of great cornerbacks in the 2024 NFL draft. And we're going to go through the top 15 dudes as well as some extra guys that Truth wants to break down that could be low-profile prospects that flourish into becoming great players. So we have a fun episode to look forward to because not only do we have Truth, we got Kyle Lindemann coming on. And he's joining us live as our guest. So appreciate him coming through. First and foremost, Truth, what is going on, man?
What's up, Spartan?
We're coming up to a wrap-up of our third season of doing this. It feels like we just started a couple weeks ago, huh?
I know. Hey, time flies, man. Having fun.
That's it, man. That's it. And real quick, guys, we do want to give a shout-out. Happy Easter to everybody, everyone who's turning in tonight. We do appreciate you coming through. Understand a lot of you got families, everything like that. So whoever's listening in on Easter, greatly appreciate you guys and hope you and your families had an amazing holiday today. But nonetheless, we want to introduce our guest, Kyle, man. What is going on, brother?
I think we're 25 days from the draft. Man, I'm excited. I think Giants fans are kind of waiting with bated breath to see what happens at 6, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, look, the draft is a fun time of year. It's also kind of a feisty time of year on Twitter, right? Everybody's mock drafts, everybody's opinions, everybody's thoughts and considerations. You know, it gets pretty aggressive on that app. Fans almost forget that they're not the ones actually making the picks, right? It's like we all argue, and trust me, I'm guilty of it too. I do the exact same thing, but we go out there, we're spitting at each other. We need a quarterback. We need to trade back. We got to trade up. Got to get receiver. If it's receiver, got to go, Neighbors versus, Rome. It becomes a mess. And then on draft night, it all unravels. And we're still arguing afterwards about whether or not the picks were the right picks, whatever. But at least we know who our team's players are. What we love to do is every year, me and Truth, relatively agnostic to the Giants, but we do keep them in mind for, considerations, right? We try to break down the top dudes in the draft. And we circle through guests and whatnot. We want to go through the top dudes. Cornerback, we save one of the best for last. Top 5 position groups in terms of importance. I would put cornerback at number 3 nowadays. I would say they're the third most important position behind edge, and the number 1 would be quarterback. I mean, what are your thoughts, Kyle?
I actually got my full 3-round mock draft dropping in the morning, man. So you want to discuss the Giants' 3 picks? Maybe we could do that a little bit later, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
We definitely do. Remind me at the end to bring that up because we definitely want to hear your thoughts. And by the way, guys, if you are not following Kyle right now, get online and do so right now. He's got great takes, and it's all encompassing. So please check him out. Yeah, Kyle, man, thank you so much. We will definitely be hashing that out at the end of the draft.
Let's
at the
get
end
to
of
your
the
question.
draft.
Sorry.
My bad. Well, look, I mean, let's talk about truth real quick. I want to hand it over to you. Cornerback situation with the Giants. What are your thoughts? How does our secondary look? How does the cornerback room look?
Well, the quarterback position is kind of thin. They got one side taken care of with Banks. Last year the young kid Hawkins came in, late round pick, looked good in training camp, struggled a bit. He's still a good, talented kid, but I still think based on free agency, they really didn't do anything. And there's still time for that. They can always go after somebody once waivers and all that stuff happens. But I see this position as one of the key positions for them to look to add on and try to get more talent.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you have two great starters or not. Your team could always use some extra talent in the secondary, right? And if you have three good cornerbacks, you can figure it out for the time being. There's just no excess of having top cornerbacks, right? And I think it's some pretty good ones that came out of the mid-rounds. Look, we had Corey Webster in the 2000s. He's drafted in the mid-round year after we got Eli. So you look at that and you look at many other situations, you say, this isn't like, quarterback or edge or a lot of those positions where the talent really falters as you go along here.
No.
Those dudes, their output in college kind of depends on the circumstances a lot of the times. The coach never getting everything like that. You can make that argument for every player, but statistically, cornerback is one of the positions that has the most, gems, if you will, in the later rounds than other positions do. So it's always exciting to talk about no matter which dude it is. Kyle, I figured we'd start with the top dudes first. And these are the guys that, the top five guys, for the most part, of the dudes that you're covering. And we really want to hear your thoughts about this. So what do you say we go right into it?
Sure.
Awesome, man. I want to start with Terrion Arnold's out of Alabama. What are your thoughts on this dude? I mean, he's not the only Alabama guy we're going over tonight. In fact, he's not the only Alabama guy you're going over tonight. Tell me about him.
Yeah, so he's probably the most technically sound corner in the draft. I think Daniel Jeremiah comped him to Jalen Johnson from the Bears, who just signed that extension.
Yeah.
I think the only concern is that, he ran just a 4.50 flat at the 40, right? Which me, sitting here in my chair, I'm talking about how that's slow, right? But as far as elite athleticism that you want from a shutdown cornerback in the NFL, you kind of want someone who's a little bit faster than that. So he maybe doesn't have that elite athleticism, but he's almost 6 foot. He was 189 pounds, I believe, at the combine. He's got a 37-inch vert. He does everything well. He really, really knows how to play the position. He's really, really fluid in terms of like his movements. He knows how to, he knows how to play the position extremely well. Like he knows how to use space against you as a receiver, like especially along the sideline. So I would say the only maybe concern with him is, what's going to happen when he's lined up against a true like number one X type of receiver. But everything else he does is so sound. Like he's just so technically sound. I'm not putting him up there maybe with like a Sauce Gardner, looking back at like those corners that were taken 2 years ago, him and Derek Stingley. But I would say he, profiles to be a very good pro. I think I had him going 14 to the Raiders.
Okay.
In my mock.
Okay. So he's the top dude in the draft for the most part, most likely.
I would say he's number one, but he maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling. Is that fair?
Doesn't have the highest ceiling. Okay, I got you.
Like I feel like he's he's kind of an instant plug and play on your team. But I maybe have more questions in terms of like, hey, can this guy be an all-pro cornerback, or is this guy just going to be a good pro? And sometimes there's nothing wrong with the good pro, right? There's nothing. I think it was Ozzie Newsome who's was famous for saying, in the first round, everybody wants to hit a home run, but if you just hit a double, you're still going to end up getting a pretty good player.
Yeah, Ozzie was a great evaluator of talent.
The best of all. I mean, pretty much one of the best to ever do it. I mean, the Ravens, I always joke, do they ever have a draft bust?
Did they what?
Do the Ravens ever have a draft bust?
They had some quarterbacks like early 2000s. Like I don't know if they traded up, but I know they drafted Kyle Baller, the quarterback from Cal.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
he didn't end up being very good. And I think they signed Steve McNair after that. And then I think they went from McNair to Flacco. So they went from Flacco to obviously Lamar Jackson. So really they've had a nice almost seamless transition there at quarterback.
Yeah, they slowly kept getting it right as things progressed a little bit, right? Like every time it got a little bit better as you went along there until you got Lamar Jackson. But, I mean, we always joke about with the Giants. I mean, I'm just jealous of how the Eagles and Ravens evaluate talent. I mean, unfortunately with the Giants, there's such a downfall there in the mid-2010s with successful drafting. And it was super frustrating because if you go 5 years without really quite getting any picks right, the whole team falters and you're the new Cleveland Browns. And that's kind of what happened. It has been a little better recently, but, we're still kind of waiting for just a little bit more fruition. Like we definitely need 1 year where 3 or 4 dudes become reliable starters, and that hasn't quite happened yet. We're getting there. There were a couple ones that are close. We have more bread and butter players, but, again, it's not like the Ravens where it's just gem after gem, man. I'm so jealous of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's go to the next dude that you have right now, Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. Toledo had a very good season last year. I'm always intrigued by the dudes that balled out on teams that were more successful than they typically are. So tell me about this guy playing at Toledo. And after you tell me, I want to hear your thoughts on, screw it, go into it. We'll talk about playing the MAC conference later.
So he was only, I believe he was only a 2 or a 3-star recruit in high school and really just kind of grew into his role. He's a little bit bigger of a corner. I believe he measured in at about 6 foot 195. He ran a 4.33 at the combine. So this dude is just lightning fast. He's also a very physical player. So like not only can he cover you and shadow you for like every blade of grass, he's very physical. So he can get up there, he can jam you. I believe he led all of college football in pass breakups the last 2 years. But, he was kind of someone maybe looking at a day 2 guy heading into the season, but he really just upped his draft stock. And I can tell you, everybody was super impressed with him at the Senior Bowl. I mean, this guy was battling it up with Roman Wilson pretty much, every practice. And a lot of people felt like he was getting the better of them. Yeah, it looks like he had 27 pass breakups the last 2 years. Only 1 interception this year, but he had 5 last year. I think sometimes when you're in stats are sometimes hard for a cornerback, right? Because sometimes if you're so good, they're not even going to throw your way, right? You're just shutting down one half of the field. So he does kind of profile to me as having the highest ceiling kind of all the corners in this class. I'm really, really enthralled by him. I think you guys as Giants fans better hope he doesn't go to Philly. That would be my concern. I actually had Philly trading up for him in mock, so I know Giants fan wouldn't be happy about that. But yeah, I'm super, super impressed with him. High character guy, got a good football IQ. Like I said, I know he comes from a smaller conference, but I don't really let that bother me because he had so many NIL deals actually to transfer to bigger schools last year.
Wow.
And he basically said, like, Toledo brought me up. Like, they're the one that had the faith in me. I want them to be rewarded. Like, I'm all about loyalty. Like, I want to stay at Toledo. So
how many people do that nowadays? I mean, I have never, ever heard of a dude staying
so
in the program.
The tight end for the Packers, Tucker Kraft, who was from South Dakota last year, he had an NIL deal to go to Alabama, and he decided to stay at South Dakota State. So
wow.
There's a few of them, but yeah, I mean, so to me, I don't look at that like a knock on Quinion Mitchell because, if he would have went to Georgia or something, we might be talking about this guy as a top 5 pick.
Right. And the idea is it's not like he couldn't have gone to those schools. That wasn't the case here.
Right.
He could have. He had offers. He had NIL, which means he would have been getting paid pretty big. And for him to stick at Toledo for there's just a leadership piece that screams at me when I hear that. I love and respect
that.
Right. So, again, I mean, it might be an adjustment constantly covering dudes that are at that level of the pros than if he was in Georgia. But if you have the ability to, I mean, he'll make the adjustments necessary when he's in training camp throughout his first year.
For sure.
All right, so on to a bigger school today. And by the way, I find it funny for the record that I don't know if you pay attention to basketball, but Clemson and Alabama played each other in the Elite Eight in basketball. I'm just kind of sitting here like, are you kidding me? Those two are playing in basketball against each other this late in the tournament just because I think of football with those guys, right? It's kind of like it kind of be like if I watched Duke and Kansas played in football. It's like the opposite.
Right.
Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, man. Tell me about this dude.
So I think my only concern for Wiggins was that he was a little undersized at the combine. He's really, really fast. I'm going to get his official measurements, but I believe he only measured in at about 173 pounds. I think that was my only concern because, you know, maybe he can put on the weight, but, you know, you remember the Commanders. Why is his name slipping on my bell? The Commanders drafted a corner in the first round last year that was only 166 pounds. And then they were out there trying to have him play like press coverage against AJ Brown. He was getting smoked. Emmanuel Forbes. So he had a little bit of a rough rookie year. So, you know, Wiggins looked like he was 6'1", 173. He did run a 4.29. He also had a 1.49 10-yard split, which is elite. I really like the way that he plays. You know, he's a feisty player. But, hey, is the weight going to be an issue? Because you're 173 pounds and you're out there trying to spear guys.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get hurt. So, you know, I'm not a nutritionist, you know, but can this guy grow into his frame? Can he get to 180? Can he get to 185? Can he play at that weight? So that would really be the only concern for me. I don't think he's going to fall too far, but I think that could knock him down a few spots.
Sure.
I just like the way that he plays. He's got good ball instincts. You know, I forget which game it was, but Clemson was playing somebody, and the running back basically broke a long run down the sideline. Wiggins ran him all the way down, came up behind, and literally punched the ball out at like the 1 or the 2 yard line. It was insane.
Damn.
Let me see if
You
I
gotta
can
appreciate
find
the
it.
hustle when a dude does that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's probably a little bit of a tier break after the top 2 corners. I think maybe it's going to depend on where, you know, and this is another corner we'll talk about, Cooper DeJean. I think it's going to depend on how teams see him, but I don't remember which game it was, but I'm looking at his stats, and I remember seeing that play on the highlight, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what a play by Wiggins! It was incredible."
Yeah,
I could definitely see this kid going to the Eagles.
So I think the concern with the Eagles would be his size because they tend to like bigger corners. You know, someone that can tackle.
Yeah. Real quick, Kyle, who are you a fan of? Who's your team?
Browns.
You're a Browns fan. Okay, for sure.
Yeah. Don't you remember on the podcast when? Don't you remember? I remember when Kyle was on the podcast, the Knicks were playing the Cavaliers. Remember that? That's when they were playing the playoffs.
Right, yeah.
Last year in the playoffs.
It was a good series too. It went 6 games or something like that.
Yeah.
Or 7. I don't remember, but it was a good series.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so far, every guy that Kyle has, obviously all going in the first round, mid to late rounds. So far.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Look, talented corners don't drop. I mean, that's just how it is. Let's go to your next guy, Kyle. Kool-Aid McKinstry, and his name is actually Quincy, but this is his nickname, and that's what everybody calls him. So tell me about this dude out of Alabama. I mean, tell me about him. I want to know, like, between him and Terry, and who was really covering the wide receiver ones typically.
Well, it's hard to say because Alabama runs such like a versatile defense. I know Kool-Aid was kind of regarded as like the top cornerback in the draft heading into the season, but I think it kind of became pretty clear halfway through the year that like Arnold was kind of ahead of him. I think maybe it's just a matter of personal preference. I think maybe with McKinstry, we kind of had these like super, super high expectations and maybe he didn't live up to them. I don't think he had a bad season by any means. I think I just would have liked to see, you know, maybe a few more plays from him. He didn't have an interception. He only had 4 pass breakups on the year.
Gotcha.
So, you know, he profiles more as like a true kind of like outside cornerback. But yeah, I think that was maybe just really the knock on him was maybe just feeling like we had such high expectations of him heading into the year. My mock draft, I had him go into Tampa, I think at 26. Because he's a little bit more of a physical kind of cornerback, kind of, you know, suits what Todd Bowles likes to do on defense, which is blitz.
Okay.
So that was kind of where I had him. You know, I don't think he's probably going to go in the top 20 picks. I know he was, you know, I see some mocks and stuff, and he's being mocked like 12th, and I'm just like,
oh, no.
A little too high. But
yeah.
I still think he's a good player.
No, for sure. For sure.
And he also is returned punts, did he not, for Alabama? So he had that little special teams part of his game.
Let me double check now, because that part is actually going to be interesting because of obviously with the kickoff, and it looks like he had one kick return. Oh, you're talking about punt returns, huh?
Yeah. I don't know about kick return for him.
I don't know if I can find it.
I gotta be honest with you, though. I have a little bit of a bias. Like, if one of the corners is this talented as a corner, I don't really want them returning kicks or punts.
And keep in mind, some of these guys could transition at slots if they're not.
Yeah, so Kool-Aid had 14 punt returns last year. So
okay,
you know what? I think though, with the way that the kickoff rules have changed, that I feel like I want my best guy out there. I want to put Devon Achane on the kick return because of the way it is that I could break a big run. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that strange kick return? Like, it looks weird.
I like it. You know,
like it? Okay.
So if you kick a touchback, the other team starts at the 30. So I think that's going to incentivize more teams to want to kick the ball probably between like the 5 and the 10, you know, to try to encourage a return. So I think it's good. I remember like watching like Dante Hall and Josh Cribbs and like Devin Hester. It was like, man, I missed the kickoff, you know?
It's funny. It's like I miss it, but I understand why like the NFL players don't really care for it too much, right? With the injuries. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But...
Well, they fixed it now, so you can't move until the ball actually hits the ground or it's touched.
Sure.
So we're still going to have the kickoff, but you're just not going to have those violent collisions where, like, if I'm the gunner on the outside, I'm running 50 yards with a full head of steam, and then I'm crack back blocking somebody.
Yeah, no, I got you.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just dangerous.
That's sick, man.
Well, all right. Let's move on to your next dude then. I mean, Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. Iowa's defense is always terrific, despite their anemic offense just always severely holding back that team from doing anything beyond winning 11 games. I mean, listen, it's hard to win 11 games. It's crazy when the defense is like single-handedly dragging. By the way, he had to go against some tough receivers this year. So what are your thoughts on Cooper?
I love him. I mean, I know this term gets overused, but he's a true Swiss Army knife on defense. Like, you can blind this guy up outside. You can put him in the box. You could put him in the slot. You could put him back at safety. And he is actually a phenomenal returner and returns punts. So he's got a ton of value. He's not afraid to come up and make a tackle. You know, he had like 62 tackles last year. So he had 5 interceptions. So I just think he's always around the ball. Like, wherever this guy just always seems to be around the ball at all times. He's just got really good instincts. I love the way that he plays. You know, he was kind of limited at what he did at the combine because he's trying to come back from an injury. Doesn't look like it's serious. Yeah. So it's not, not something super serious like an ACL or Achilles or something like that. So should be fine. I just, some people say, is he a cornerback? Is he a safety? And I
was going to ask that because we had to talk about that when we discussed the safeties, right? And so what are your thoughts?
I think who cares? Because I think NFL, and the NFL is all about one thing. It's all about matchups and how does this guy fit? And with, I don't know if it's DeJean or DeJean. People keep pronouncing it differently, but with him, you can line this guy up anywhere. So I think, depending on what you want to do on defense, you've got all this added versatility. If you want to put him back at safety, he runs like a corner. So, I mean, I think, analytics and kind of everything else has kind of devalued the safety and the linebacker positions a little bit because the hit rates are kind of hard. It's kind of a position that you're not necessarily going to come in and dominate as a rookie because so much of it's cerebral, right?
Yeah.
I think that's probably why we've seen more linebackers and safeties get pushed down in the draft in recent years. But even if he's a safety, I'm still good with taking him in round 1, probably after pick 20.
Yeah.
Just because I just think he's so versatile at what he does. And, special teams is going to be more important this year, obviously with the kickoff stuff. So it's like, if he can make some plays for me either way on special teams, I mean, that's a boost. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, he made the freak list, number 14th on Bruce Feldman's list, which is very impressive, being number 14th. So, like what you're saying, Kyle, he's a great athlete, and he'll probably will be used in different schemes, whether it's safety or corner. in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I just think like NFL defenses have changed their looks. Like there's no such thing as a 3-4 defense. There's no such thing as a 4-3 defense anymore. Like these teams are changing what they do so often based on what the offense is doing. So I try not to get locked into that too much. I think sometimes, especially, like in basketball, right? Sometimes it's like teams stopped worrying about, oh, is this guy a true center? Is this guy a true power forward? Let's just put our 5 best guys out there. And, when I look at a team's secondary, it's like, just put your 5 best guys out there. Why are we so worried about who fits into what, right?
Right.
Yep.
Well, we're done with those top 5 dudes. And really, I mean, they're all phenomenal players. The Giants are likely not walking away with any of them. But, I mean, regardless, any of the teams that do, I'd be very, very interested to see how a lot of their careers turn out, and what happens with all of them. Does Cooper switch to safety? We'll see. The first dude on my list is Enos Rakestraw. He is out of Missouri, and Missouri is one of those teams where, let's talk about Toledo. Another program that did better this past year than they normally do. Missouri had a phenomenal year beating Ohio State in one of the New Year's Six Bowls. What I liked about this dude is his athletic ability, and he had to go against some very challenging receivers this year, and he did an excellent job across the board. So he's a very good athlete. He's very good, very, very, very good top of the line at playing man coverage. Zone coverage, he's got to be a little bit better, and depending on what defensive scheme he goes into, he's got to be able to make those adjustments. When it comes to tackling, and here's the thing, Kyle, I feel like 20 years ago, if we were doing the show, I wouldn't care to bring up how good they are at tackling, but the quality has gotten so bad that I feel like it's super critical to discuss this. And we've had former Giants players come on the podcast and talk about how poor the tackling quality is. And some of it's due to injury. Some of it's just kind of due to the dynamics of the game a little bit and how things have progressed. So a dude like Enos having great tackling abilities is something that I hold strongly because, I mean, if there's a dude running at them and they got to make a game-saving tackle, I got to have confidence that they can make those kind of stops, let alone just stops on the outside for short yardage. Negatives. One of the big problems that I have with this dude is his use of hands, and he's not the only one. He's going to get some pass interference calls if he's not a little bit careful with how much contact he engages with his hand motion. He's got to be very careful when he plays at the next level. In college, it's a 15-yard penalty. In the pros, it's spot of the foul, and he's got to be careful because teams can't afford to get big penalties that this guy might allow for. He's got to learn how to use his hands effectively at the next level so that you bat down the ball, which he's good at. Don't get me wrong, but you can't shove a dude to try to break out coverage, which is something that he struggles with. Truth, do you have any more thoughts?
Well, he's a little undersized, right?
Right.
5'11", 183. Good player, like you've been saying, good instincts. Probably, like you said, his tackling skills, like many guys coming out of the draft and currently playing football in the NFL, are pretty bad. So
Right.
But hopefully it could be taught and these guys could get better at it.
Yeah, 100%. Kyle, any further thoughts on this guy?
Yeah, I mean, he's a personal favorite of Daniel Jeremiah. I think he's someone, he looks a little bit more athletic on the film. He didn't necessarily test the best at the combine. So I would say he's kind of more in that Arnold. He wasn't as fast as Arnold, maybe a little bit slower. It looks like he was a 4.54. Arnold was a 4.5 flat, it looks like. But he, no doubt, he's a tough, determined corner. He does everything you ask of him.
Yeah.
I kind of had him going, early, mid-round 2, just because I maybe thought the athleticism might shy some teams away. But wouldn't shock me if he's on the board when the Giants pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll be there at 47. And he's been on some mock drafts going to the Giants in round 2. I've seen it.
Yeah. But, I will say cornerback is probably the hardest evaluation in terms of talent because the stats don't necessarily tell the whole picture. And sometimes the film doesn't necessarily tell the whole picture because we don't exactly always know what a guy's assignment is.
Right.
And unless you're like, an astute film guru, and, this is something I'm even becoming better at and trying to learn more about is, you really need the context. Like, what exactly is the defensive coverage here? Like, what is the safety supposed to do on this play? Was, is he, picking up someone who's coming in the flat, and the safety is supposed to pick up the receiver who just caught the ball, and everyone blames Rakestraw, and it's like that is such a tough eval for me.
Right. No, I get that. Well, the next dude on the list is out of Iowa State, TJ Tampa. You talk about programs. I mean, Iowa State wasn't particularly good this past year, but overall their program's been a lot better under their coach over the last few years. He's developed some good players, right, including Brock Purdy. What I liked about this guy with his game and his level of play, when you talk about the size, he's got that thing. He's got great size as well as very good athletic ability to match that size. He's got very loose hips, and he can match the wide receiver's route running abilities, and probably has one of the more flexible route running coverages amongst the corners that I can see. He doesn't really seem to bite or have any troubles with any particular route, deep, short, any of those routes. He's generally pretty good at covering. Great positioning, great ball skills. He does a very good job of fighting. Issues that I've had with him: lousy tackler. And again, just kind of back to what we were just talking about. Tackles too high and too soft, in my opinion. He also gambles. There are times where he not necessarily bites, but he'll try to go for an interception instead of just trying to stay base with the wide receiver, and then that leads to a missed route run or something like that. Those are things that I feel like he can work on, though. But otherwise, his body of work is very good. Truth, what are your thoughts on him?
All the above, what you've been saying, does have an issue with his hands, a little grabby sometimes, because he does get beat. So he's gonna have to worry about it. Watch out for that, because he will get called penalties on that in the NFL. I got him as a late round 2, possibly be pushed back a little bit because of the depth and strength of the other positions in this draft, like we always talk about, wide receiver and the offensive tackle. That's going to really push a lot of other positions back in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle, any further thoughts on this dude?
No, I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next guy I have is Kamari Lassiter. So, things to like about Kamari here. One sec. Sorry. Very smart in terms of breaking down the field and understanding his assignments and how the plays are breaking down. Generally when I watch the Panthers in the mid 2010s, Kuechly was very good at that from the linebacker perspective. So to see a cornerback kind of recognize the plays and whatnot, very, very good and very valuable to any defense, especially if you're not the best cornerback in the draft, right? So it's definitely something that he specializes in. He's a very good tackler too, so I love that aspect. Route recognition, kind of playing into what I was talking about earlier, very good. And then he's got great speed, not a concern. Another pass interference nightmare kind of guy, just has to be careful with his hands and the use of his hands. It's not going to translate very well in the NFL if he can't get that down, especially because one of his specialties is breaking up the play a little bit. Needs to just loosen up to make sure that he is not causing problems with pass interference. And then, this is actually somebody who I find to be a gem if he goes a little bit later in the draft. I think he's a very talented player, played at Georgia, had to go against tough competition, excelled against tough competition. And if it wasn't really for his size, then I actually wouldn't really have much of an issue with this guy at all. Thoughts from either of you guys?
Okay, Kyle.
So I think my concern with him is some have actually been projecting him to play safety. He didn't do a ton at the combine. His pro day was not good. They basically timed him between a 4.61 and a 4.63, which if you're 4.6 or over for a corner, I mean, that's just tough. So
you know what's weird though, real quick? I mean, the on the field speed looks a lot better than that 40-yard time. I'm a little surprised, but that's a tough one. I mean, it's really tough to recover from a 40 like that. It really is.
No doubt. So I wonder if that could affect his, draft stock a little bit. I still had him going at the end of round 2, but I think it's, is this guy going to play safety? Does he have enough speed to play outside? I think that would be my concern. but he played a
What about
lot
the
the
slot,
last
Kyle?
2 years in, Georgia's system. So I think that, that obviously bodes well.
Yeah.
On that good of a team, you're starting and contributing, right?
100%. 100%.
Kyle, quick question. Do you think because he may have issues on the outside, would he be better on the inside as a slot?
Well, I think his size might make it a little tough for him to be in the slot. It's typically something for a smaller corner. I think a lot of your slot guys are like 5'9", 5'10". Not to say that he can't, but he's definitely over 6 foot. So not to say he couldn't play slot, but I'm trying to see if I can pull up what his alignment was. Okay, he played 48 snaps in the slot this year out of 706, so not a lot, but he did do it a little bit, but he was mostly lined up outside.
Right. Typical Georgia defensive back, right? Typical. They look all the same in their uniforms.
Yeah.
All great athletes.
Yeah.
Right.
No, they always do a good job of developing, man. I mean, all talent on that team. There's no doubt. So the next dude I have, we're staying within the SEC. I got one more Big Ten dude to talk about, and then that's pretty much it from my end. So DJ James, out of Auburn, he is, pretty good player. Again, athlete. I mean, we could pretty much say the same about most cornerbacks. Very good ability to break up the pass. He's very good in man coverage. That's a specialty. I love a good man coverage player. So a lot of the Giants cornerbacks in the 2000s were especially good at this, like Corey Webster and whatnot. So I do miss that. But we're back to the modern age. He's a bad tackler, and he has gotten torched on the run game. Like, he has had dudes run down his throat, and he's not making the game-saving tackle. I hate that. I do hate that about him. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Truth? Did you feel the same way about him watching it, the run game? Because it was not good.
Yeah, he has a hard time as a tackler. A little bit of
New Mexico State run over him, man. You can't let that happen.
Yeah. Well, he's got a lean body frame. I'm showing that 6 foot 175, and that is an issue of him. He needs to get a little more muscle. We talked about a couple of guys that have to do this, and of course, the NFL has a great conditioning programs, and these guys will get bigger and stronger. Hopefully, it won't affect their speed on the field.
Totally. Kyle, any further thoughts on this dude?
No, I mean, he, was at Auburn, he was at Oregon for 3 years, transferred to Auburn in 2022. So he's a little bit older prospect. He just turned 23. He did have 5 interceptions the last 3 years to go along with 21 pass breakups. So, he definitely profiles as a really, really good cover corner. I think some of the other stuff, maybe if it can be cleaned up, can we, does this guy have the want and the drive to tackle, or is he someone that just doesn't want to tackle?
Yeah.
Can we coach him up to tackle? I think a lot of it, a lot of tackling for defensive backs is their want and their toughness. And do they want to bring this guy down, or whatever? I'm just trying to protect my body. I think it's very true of tight ends too. How much does this guy want to block? So again, I try not to knock guys too much on stuff. I always like to break things down into 2 categories, right? Like, can this flaw in this prospect not be coached up? Like, okay, he's 6 foot 185. He's not fast. So we can have all the best coaching in the world. We're probably not going to make a player faster, at least by much. But okay, this guy's athletic. He's got a ton of upside. He's just undisciplined. He needs to learn the position more. He's raw. Okay, maybe that guy we can coach up. So I try to, put those into 2 categories. I think that's important, to like make that distinction when you're like evaluating college players.
Like, you can improve the tackling quality. You can't really coach up speed. I mean, a little form technique here and there, but that's not. I mean, that's half of a second a month. I mean, barely anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And then the last dude that I have here is Mike Sarenstill out of Michigan. When it comes to route running matching, he's very good at this. He's super talented. And then on the side of Michigan's defense, throughout their undefeated season, I mean, he was a huge component in shutting down some of the powerful offenses that could have knocked them off, right? Including Ohio State. He had a very good game that day. He's very instinctual. He's very aggressive versus the run. He's not afraid to tackle at all, right? So he's got that component there. He does have to clean up the tackling form. It's a bit high. Even though he's aggressive pursuing the runner, he's got to clean that part up. I do understand that's a dangerous transition, right? A lot of people, when they adjust to going lower, their head lowers a little bit, and that's dangerous. So, whoever coaches him, hopefully they work that appropriately. Again, glad that he does tackle it at the very least. I mean, if he's getting dragged for a couple yards, would rather him just have some willingness to make some sort of stop. And then some points with his game seem just a little bit slow, especially in zone coverage, as guys would come across. It is something that I thought was worth calling out. Truth, do you have any further comments on him or any disagreements with what I said?
No, he's another little undersized. He's 5'9", 185, a little bit more stocky built. Has a high motor. Plays a lot of enthusiasm, this kid. But it's going to be interesting to see how teams view him. Kyle mentioned about a slot, about the size, about a slot. This kid might be a slot guy at 5'9", 185. So we'll see how that transitions him into the NFL level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely a slot for sure, but he plays the position well. This is a guy, he had 6 interceptions last year.
Yeah.
Kind of like I was talking about with DeJean, he's always around the ball. This guy just always seems to be around the ball. And J.J. McCarthy, even in his interviews, even talked about how, Sanders still really was the captain of the team, that he really was the leader. Everybody went to him. I'm fine with him as a nickel. I had him going 52 to the Rams. Thought that would be a perfect fit for him. Like I said, he's not the most athletic corner, but man, like all the intangibles and all the skills and the leadership, and like, this is a guy we want to build our culture around. This guy's great. He can adjust and make calls for our defense. So he's definitely being overlooked in my opinion, because think about how much the game's changed. Your third corner, your third receiver are playing so much now. So we really have to look at it like, your third cornerback is playing more than your third linebacker. So you can never have enough, depth. Back in my day, linebackers were like 260 pounds. Now these guys are like 215, right?
Right. It's definitely changed. All right. Well, Truth, look, on to your dudes, man. Let's start with a Rutgers guy, Max Belton. I always kind of like when we're talking about a dude, I don't know where he's from, but we're starting with a Jersey dude, right? So we're off to a good start. Tell me about him.
Well, he's got good speed. I think he ran a 4.39 in his timing when he did the 40-yard dash. They say, and I saw a lot of tape on him, he looks like he's better at zone and than did man. But I do like his motor. I think he's got a good. I think when he plays the game, Kyle. I watch games. I always watch a player on every play, even though the play's not going to him. I want to see what he does. If he's jogging, if he's showing. And this kid always hustled. I like that he hustled on plays. The ball wasn't even near him, and he was looking to make plays. I can see this kid going to the Giants. I can see them looking at him and saying, hey, here's a possible late day 2, maybe day 3 pick, with him. He's one of my top 3 guys that I would pick if I had to pick somebody reasonably who the Giants will be looking at. Certainly not in round 1. But other than that, I could definitely see a day 2 or 3 with this kid going to the Giants.
Yeah. His speed is phenomenal, isn't it? I think he ran a sub 4.
Yeah, 4.39 he ran. And, sometimes because of how fast he is, sometimes he does a bad job with his angles in pursuit, and he's made issues on that. I've seen a few plays like that. And I even heard somebody on one of the websites talk about that. So it's a little refinement that he needs to fix. Like all these kids, no one's perfect in this draft. Now, one cornerback is perfect, and they're going to need to be coached up. So that's what it's all about, to develop and get better at your craft.
For sure. What about out of Missouri? We're back to Missouri. Chris Abrams-Drain.
Yeah, another one. We had a lot of these guys, right, throughout our shows. A lot of prospects on 2 prospects on one team. Another kid, he's got a lean body frame, 5'11", 179, 180. Very elite agility and speed. Another player, ball hawk. That's one thing that he's known for. Bad traits, like I just said, he's undersized and needs to work on his tackling. Like a lot of these kids, they need to work on the tackling. Can't be grabbing. You got to be trying to grab, hold on, and try to use your own body to take somebody down, not just try to hand tackle. You can't do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Kalen Carson out of Wake Forest.
This kid's a little bigger. I've seen this kid mock to us a few times. And if any of you guys want to chime in, please do. I got him going mid round 4. And I did see a couple of our friends on Twitter mock him to the Giants. Good size, got some quickness to his game, quick feet, anticipates well, which I like about him. Again, he does take chances. He got that gambler mentality. I think he had, and you can check him, I'm guessing, just guessing. I think he had like 4 interceptions this year, if I'm not mistaken. You can check. I don't know if he's the guy I'm thinking of. But he will take chances, but sometimes as a cornerback, you have to play the game that way. You got to play taking chances.
Yeah, no, totally.
Any thoughts on these guys before we move on?
I have no further comments. We're just trying to be mindful. We have a hard stop for Kyle at 9:00, and for the 5 minutes before we leave, let's talk about who he has the Giants mocking. So go ahead. We can go right to Kyrie Jackson.
Yeah, he's a little bit more framed than him. Lean, long guy, 6'4", and he's got good movement, transitions well in coverage. If I had to say one thing bad about him, like some of the other guys, he kind of grabs again. Sometimes he may get beat against a quicker wide receiver when they do their routes, so he reaches and grabs for them. But I like the kid. Good quality pick. I think a late 4th round, possibly maybe early 5th round.
Okay. And then last dude of the main segment that we were going over tonight, Cam Hart out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, I like this kid. He made the freaks list number 38. Great combination of size and athleticism. Does good footwork. He does a good job in man coverage, and I like that he was on Notre Dame, and it seems like they kind of reminds it a little bit of Julian Love, a little bit. And again, 6'3", 202. I like his size, and I think the only thing about him that might be bad, and it could be a big if, he's a little stiff in the hips. So that could be an issue when he's trying to turn and cover on verticals. But I think he's a good player and a good quality pick on day 3. I have him in late 4, early 5th.
Okay. Well, fair enough. So let me ask you then, Kyle, we got a few minutes with you left and want to be mindful. The Giants with the mock draft, just switching gears here. Who do you like for the Giants? Who do you have them getting? We want controversy.
I got to do, well, there won't be too much controversy. I got a Dunze at 6. Or I'm sorry, I have Malik Neighbors at 6. Maybe he's going to get a few OBJ comps just because of the LSU and their size is similar and they play bigger than they were. It was like OBJ was only 5'11", but he had such long arms, and it just felt like he played like he was 6'3" in his prime. And, hate to see kind of what happened of OBJ's career trajectory, but I feel like people, I was talking to someone the other day, like, oh, was OBJ a bust? And I'm like, man, you forget the guy, it's like first 4 or 5 years in the league, this guy was unbelievable till that leg injury, and then gets traded to Cleveland. He was just a bad fit with Mayfield. Then he tore his ACL, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but man, I feel like OBJ, man, when he was with the Giants was special. I feel like people forget, man, how good this dude was. I just think Neighbors, it's the perfect meeting point of need and talent. Like the Giants have a couple of nice ancillary pieces, right? Like I think Wan'Dale Robinson could be a decent 2. We got Jalen Hyatt. We've got Darius Slayton. We've got Hodgins. I think those guys are fine, but those guys are more. None of those guys is a true number 1. If you put Neighbors in there, man, now we're supercharging the offense. We've got somebody the defense has got to be worried about. Even if Daniel Jones isn't the guy, you've got this receiver there for whoever you bring in next that is going to help him succeed. I just think it makes too much sense. Don't get cute. I think you're just committed to seeing what you got in Daniel Jones. Maybe in round 2, if maybe Bo Nix or Michael Penix is there, or maybe round 3, you want to roll the dice on Spencer Rattler. Maybe Dable can coach him up. I just think that makes too much sense. Obviously, your other pick, your true second rounder went to Carolina. I think that was a good move for the Giants getting Burns. Talking about a guy that the Rams had offered 2 first-round picks for like the year before. You guys got him for just a second. You had to pay him. But, man, like you think about those 2007, 2011 Giants teams, right? Like they got pressure with 4. And it's funny seeing Spags like basically doing that with the Chiefs, right? Because he did it with the Giants.
I know.
And it was like, man, especially that one Super Bowl against the Patriots, like they put Justin Tuck at defensive tackle, and he was blowing up the line of scrimmage the whole game, and they had no answer for him. And then it was like you had Strahan and OCU Menora on the other side. So I mean, that was always the blueprint of the Giants. So I think you can never have enough pass rushers. So I would not fret that pick. I think most Giants fans were on board with that. Might not have been the most conventional way, but I just think it's too hard to get young edge rushers. 47, I got you guys going Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker from Texas A&M.
Ooh.
Okay.
He's got a little – he might end up higher than this when it's all said and done. And I kind of said this in my report. He's another favorite of Daniel Jeremiah. Now, this guy, though, he kind of does a little bit of everything. He had 5 sacks against Alabama and LSU to go along with 84, total tackles. I'll need to look at the tape just to know exactly how well this guy plays in space, because you guys do kind of have enough edge rushers. You don't really need a linebacker that is rushing. You're going to need a linebacker that can play in space. It looks like he can do both. Obviously, being a fantasy guy, my primary focus is offense, but I still like going through I know enough, obviously. I thought the Edgerrin Cooper fit was pretty good because it fills a need, and he's kind of high on boards. And then looks like 70, I had Javon Bullard, safety from Georgia, falling to you. Obviously, McKinney's gone, so they're kind of going to need someone to step into that role.
Yeah.
And kind of the way the board was going, I don't know if I see you guys taking a linebacker or a running back on day 2. I think you guys are probably going to dangle into the running back market on day 3, because I think that's probably where the value is. I just feel like safety was a good pick there.
Well, very interesting, that number 47. I mean, that kid is a talented player, and you're right.
I kind of saw some other mocks, maybe you guys getting Junior Colson from Michigan, the other linebacker. I think he might be an interesting fit.
70, third round?
Yeah. 70 or 47. He's kind of all over the board. I mean, this year's linebacker class is tough because we don't really have anybody that would go around 1. I think if Peyton Wilson, the kid from North Carolina State, he tore his ACL in high school and in college, and he's got he plays violent, and he's got a lengthy injury history. But it's kind of baked into the cost with him already, because I think most mocks have him going around 40. If that guy had never been hurt, I think he would be a top 20 pick, because he just lit up the combine.
Yeah. What about finding a defensive tackle to replace Williams? Do you see them getting value possibly on day 3 for that, if they go for that route?
Definitely some guys I like. I mean, I like Michael Hall, from Ohio State.
Yeah.
If he had stayed at Ohio State, I think next year that guy's a top 20 pick all day. There's kind of some other later guys, like this Mason Smith guy from LSU. He's got a ton of talent. He actually tore his ACL like celebrating a sack. Basically, I know it was terrible.
We got 3 guys that are pretty decent.
Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely, I like this Brandon Dorless kid from Oregon.
Yeah.
But he was only 282 pounds. He's kind of more of a gap shooting, defensive tackle. I got to watch more tape on the Giants, but I think with you guys having Burns and Thibodeau off the edge, who are already bigger edge rushers, it feels like you guys need kind of a true nose tackle that's just going to, line up over the center and plug the middle versus I don't think you guys really need an undersized kind of gap shooting defensive tackle, but maybe he's someone you could put at defensive end. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah, and they got didn't Dexter do that a lot last year? Play on the nose.
Yeah. So I think defensive line, you know, you can never have enough depth there, but I feel like that's really become the strength of the Giants now, right? Like, these guys pinning their ears back and just getting after the quarterback. I mean, that creates a lot of opportunity. So I like that they did that. And to be honest with you, if you're worried about the secondary, the best way to, you know, help the secondary is to get a good pass rush, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be interesting, guys. I'm like so pumped. I can't believe we're like 24, 25 days away from the draft. I'm just
It's going to be insane. It's going to be insane when whoever we watch NFL Network and they say the Giants are on the clock at 6. I mean, Giant fans are going to go nuts on Twitter. I'm telling you.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And
No
I'll
matter
tell
what
you,
happens, it's gonna be crazy.
I'll tell you, I'll be tweeting, but last year I was in too many group chats on my phone, and like somebody tipped off the Bijan Robinson pick to the Falcons, and I was so mad. I was like, no, like I wanted the suspense. So like, I'm not going in any group chats on Twitter for at least the first 2 days of the draft. Like I'll be tweeting and stuff, and I'm like, I'm not reading the timeline. I'm disabling my notifications from Schefter because like, even though obviously I'm in the media, like I just love being able to sit back as a fan and enjoy the draft, but like obviously still share my input without being like tipped off to like insider information. Cause I'll tell you what, that ruined the draft for me last year. And I'm like, man, I'm never going to do that again.
Well, like the insider information, so you kind of have the sense.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to know. I want to be surprised. I don't want
100%.
someone tipping me off.
Kyle, let me ask you a question. I know you did your mock and you preferred to stay there at 6, get the best play available, which I said last week, go wide receiver. What do you think the odds of the Giants shocking and trading up or even back in round 1?
I really don't think you can trade up because I just think with only having 1 second-round pick, I just feel like if you're trading up, then if you're taking a quarterback, then you're not able to get a receiver on day 2. So I was talking with someone about that earlier. They're like, I don't think the Giants should take a receiver early. Like this class is so deep. But like the way I look at it, man, like these 3 guys, if these 3 guys are considered late or head and shoulders above the rest in a deep wide receiver class, to me, that only tells me like, holy crap, these guys are really freaking good. And I'm talking about Harrison Jr., Adunze, and Neighbors. I think it's a deep wide receiver class, but there's a huge tier break after the 3 guys off the board. I think if Joe Shane wants to roll the dice, they have the ultimate trump card against the Vikings because Arizona has so many picks. Like you don't need to trade back. They've got like 6 picks, I think, in the top 90. They're tied for the most picks in the draft. So like, if I'm Arizona, just take Harrison Jr. Like you're trying to build like a team of like high character guys who just want to play football, which was evidenced by their draft last year. I want to say they took a conservative approach, but they made sure the guys they drafted were character fits because they're like, hey, we're tearing this thing down. Like we want to make sure we've got the right guys we're building around. Harrison Jr., you don't have to worry about that. I mean, I can't say he's like the safest guy in the draft, but like I'm rolling with him all day. So I just think with Arizona, it's like it just doesn't make sense to trade back. Then you got the Chargers at 5, which they could be the team, if Minnesota that moves up, for McCarthy but maybe Jim Harbaugh says, look, I'm taking Brock Bowers. I'm not risking it. I'm taking Joe Alt. Like they're definitely going to go one of those 2 spots or maybe receiver. So I think
either way, you're right.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a chance the Giants could get something to move back. But if you're not going to get one of the top 3 receivers, then let's say you move back to 12 or something with Denver. Who are you taking at 12?
I don't even know who I want at 12. I mean, I just feel like at least when you get to the top 4 all-encompassing players, right? Caleb and May and Daniels and MHJ, right? Right. You can even include Alton there. Once those guys are gone, like the best guys there are between Neighbors and Dunze, right? In my opinion.
Right.
And it's a need for the Giants. So I feel like that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's like Kyle says, don't overthink it.
So
don't overthink it.
I get the allure of trading back, right? Because if you can get a haul, you can get, you can get a next year's one. But I'll tell you what, this year's top 10 is like so different because this year's top 10 is loaded, man. I feel like this year's top 10, all these guys in pretty much any other draft are going in the top 5. And it's like the Giants are sitting there at 6. If 3 quarterbacks go, let's say 4 quarterbacks go to start the draft, the Giants are basically getting the second best position player off the board or third best position player off the board.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it. If somebody makes you an offer you can't refuse, like Denver says, hey, we're going to come up to 12. We're going to give you next year's 1. We're going to give you next year's 2. We're going to give you a third this year, like something crazy, then I would understand it. But I just feel like with the Giants, I mean, it's like the ownership's pretty patient, right? They tend to give you a long leash if you're the coach or the GM.
Coaches not so much because they fired Coughlin before they fired Reese. After between McAdoo and our current guy, everybody got 2 years. They're generally patient with quarterbacks and they're patient with GMs.
I just think the hard part is if you move on from Daniel Jones, I just feel like they're admitting defeat. So if they want to take McCarthy or Jaden Daniels or somebody falls to 6, that's fine. I don't like the idea of you guys trading up for one of those guys because it's just
see who falls to you at 6.
Then you don't have a second round pick, and I like the makeup of your team, but I don't like the lack of weapons you have on offense, especially with Saquon gone. And I don't like that scenario for a rookie quarterback. I just think take Neighbors, and if you can't figure it out with Daniel Jones, like you have options for next year. You know what I mean?
Right.
Versus I just feel like you're back to the same problem. Where it's like, okay, we're trying to throw this quarterback in here, but he doesn't have anybody to throw to. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think Wandale and Jalen Hyatt and some of these other guys can be okay as like an ancillary piece, but you can't run your offense through them, especially with Saquon not there. So it's just like,
and getting a guy like Neighbors is going to make Wandale Robinson even better. You get a guy like Neighbors. I mean, teams will have to worry about him like they did with Barkley.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Kyle, thank you so much
for coming on, man.
We really appreciate
it. Let's keep in touch and we'll see what happens. And
it's going to be a fun ride. The draft night, man. It's going to be a fun ride.
It really is. All right, guys.
Kyle, thanks see you later. Truth, you can let's hang around for a little bit longer.
Yeah. All right, take care, man.
Take care, Kyle.
Yep. See ya.
Let me remove Cam Hart's name after all this time. There's no point in that. Got to appreciate Kyle. That was really cool that he came through and he had a lot of insight and whatnot. And clearly, this is a passion of his, right? Truth. Yeah. I want to just go through. I mean, we got a few extra corners here. I mean, just real quick, tell me about each of these guys that you feel like might be a diamond in the rough. You want to start with Elijah Jones?
There's a couple of guys who I kind of like, and I saw some film on them, and I'm not going to go crazy in depth with this.
Yeah.
But there's a kid out of Boston College, Elijah Jones. Got good long lean, 6'2", 185. Like the length and speed is good. I think he ran like a 4.4, low 4.4s. I like the kid. He's getting a lot of traction as a possible Giants day 3 pick. They're looking at, and here's a kid who I can see the Giants like we talked about. I can't see the Giants going corner in round 1. Absolutely not, right? We know that. And even round 2, I don't know if they'll go cornerback in round 2.
I don't think so. Can I be honest with you, Truth?
Yeah.
I don't care about defense right now. That is a controversial take. I feel like our defense has been playing good enough football the last several years to be a playoff team. Like they're not what holds us back.
I agree.
Being at the next level, it's the offense, right? So I just don't.
Right.
And it's not to say that we can't use more talent, especially to get the mid rounds. You got to go best player available, but we got to fix our O-line. Then we got to fix our quarterback, and we got to fix our wide receivers. What's really impressed me about the Giants over the last couple of years, just as a pause to what we're talking about, is how resilient that secondary's been. When we first got when 2021 became 2022, the group I was most worried about was the secondary. We had lost some players. I thought it was going to be a disaster. They went out there and they had a surprisingly damn good level of play. And in 2023, it wasn't all that bad. There were some things to improve, but they're not bleeding at the seams like they are on the offensive side of the ball. So that's just my personal take. Every pick we do this year that's offensive, I'm looking at that like, is this guy going to bring us to the promised land?
Yeah, and you know what, Spartan? I think your concerns definitely reflected what Shane did in free agency. And he did focus on the offensive side of the ball. He got several linemen, right? He got
yes. And by the way, I love to see some offense. Like I love having veteran depth at O-line and not draft pick. The reason being is because a lot of these get it takes a while to adjust to the level of play as a lineman. If you're a 5th round lineman, in 2 to 3 years, you might be a decent player. You're not going to be a good player if you go out in week 2 because the main guy got injured, right?
Right.
To have a veteran out there, there's a little bit more stability.
Yeah. But you know what? I really believe, you talk about the Giants, Steve. I think the one crack in their armor is their defense against the run. Even last year, they gave up a little too much. And I think they really have to get somebody who can play. I know they got Burns. All right, but Burns is going to be that spot that I think what's his name Ojolari played. I think that's where he's going to play, right?
Yes.
And so they're going to find someone to play right alongside Lawrence, because Lawrence is going to be the nose tackle like he was last year, and they need a guy there who could seal that edge, run support, and occasionally make a few sacks here and there, like. Johnny Ward, who we had last year, played a lot of snaps for the Giants, and he did not do anything in any regard. What do you have? 1 sack the whole year? And they need a guy, and you mentioned that kid, Michael Hall. And there's another kid you love, Chris Jenkins, out of Michigan.
Love him, man. He is a freaking great player.
He'd be perfect playing alongside Dexter Lawrence. I really think they need to get one of those guys within the first 4 picks. I really do.
Yeah.
And again, safety, that's another position. So it's going to be really interesting. Tudo had a great question in here. He wanted to know about if we thought about getting quarterback at 6. And I think we're all in the same agreement. If that's who Shane believes in, whether
then
it be
go for it, but don't reach.
Then I support it. I would support it. Even though I know it won't be best player on the board, absolutely not. But that's why we're paying him to be our GM, because he knows more than we do, folks. Right? He knows more than we do. So I would trust his judgment if that's what he does. But I feel strongly that I think everything's pointing to if the draft falls away, I'm seeing it's going to be a wide receiver.
Yep, I'm with you. That's my full expectation. Hey, Truth, what do you say we wrap it up and we move on to we just wrap up the show, and then next week?
Don't worry about it. Yeah, we'll wrap it up, and what we like to do next week, maybe get some fans a little bit of participation, have a little panels and talk, and maybe get some insight. Any topic you want to talk about, we could do that, guys. So
let's do it, guys. Anybody who's out there that wants to come on the show, Tudo, Mark, we'll send notification on Twitter, and we want you guys to just come on and break down and shoot it with us, man. Just tell us what your thoughts are on the draft, everything like that, man. Bring your mock drafts, do whatever you want. Come on through, all right?
Yep.
Awesome. Guys, look, I want to say thank you all. Happy Easter. God bless. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate every last one of you. Truth, anything else?
No, that's just it, man.
All right,
and
man.
Again, season 3.
Almost to a close, baby. Take care, guys.
All right, see you, boys.